So without further ado, as they say, the gentleman that I'm about to introduce to you, I recall many years ago, I, like a number of you, have been to a number of events, shows, etc. And when I was starting out, tipping my toes into broadcasting, I went to BBC Radio London, and this gentleman was there. So, before I say his name, a bit of background. He is a social commentator and entertainer. His career has seen him take on a multitude of roles, including acting, stand-up comedy, DJing, and currently he's a broadcaster on BBC Radio London 94.9 FM. He has his own drive time show. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Eddie Nestor.
Is it better here or there?
It's your choice.
Maybe I'll do it from here, so I can lean on something. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me apologise for being late. I thought it was a good idea to drive here, but stupidly, there's not really very much parking around here, so I've been driving around and around. That's after going swimming with my second born, so sincere apologies for being late there. I heard Livingston there with that, and I wondered who he was about to introduce because it didn't sound like me. So what we're going to do is, if you don't mind, I will tell you a little bit about me, tell you a little bit about what I'm doing, where I work, what I think, and then we'll share 10 minutes of a discussion where you can ask and we can discuss. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay, so I was born in Hackney of two Dominican parents. When I leave here tonight, I go to the Jazz Cafe to try and raise some money after the devastating effects of, you know, a natural kind of catastrophe, really, which has decimated, really, the nature island, the Caribbean. Not the Dominican Republic, as Sky News would have you believe, but Dominica. It's in the Caribbean. And that's what I'll be doing tonight. And I seem to have dedicated a lot of my time to charity or charitable events in one way, shape or form. And maybe when I tell you a little bit about what happened to me, you'll understand why. So, born way back in 1964 in Hackney Hospital, Block E, apparently. I was a forceps delivery, and I came as a guy with the funny eyes and the flat nose. I was tall until I was about 11, and then everybody grew past me. I went to Upton House School, which was the worst school in Hackney. So bad, in fact, any of you who come from Hackney know they've knocked the building down twice. It was a bad, bad school, you know. But actually, it was the university of life, really tough. And you kind of had to survive by your wits. And many of the things that I've used to kind of survive in the difficult world of the BBC have been learned on the streets of Hackney. I always tell people I was born in Hackney, and I hope that that's something. I say it to them to tell them I'm streetwise and to tell them not to muck about with me. I use it in any way that I can. I was born in Hackney, you know, is something that I say a lot to people. So I went to Upton House School. I was a grade A student up until about 12, when I said to a teacher, I'd like to be a solicitor, I'd like to be a lawyer. He said to me, did Mr. Stansfield, Eddie, I think that's lovely, but I think you should set your sights more realistically. I never ever studied again. It was the last day I studied. I never studied again. The rest of my life has been a complete blag. Complete and total blag. So much so that the people on that table can tell you that I just wanted to make sure of what they wanted me to talk about today, so that I didn't tell you about something else. And it's not great being a blagger, actually. So, jumping forward just a little bit so you know, I've done a few things in the last few years, and I've just signed up to do probably the most scary thing ever, which is to stop being a blagger, and I've signed up for a degree at Birkbeck University in criminology. We'll talk about that, but that's because I want to stop being a blagger. So I went to Upton House School. The only two exams I passed were taught to me by two black men. One was Mr. Pete and the other was Mr. Ejegbo. Mr. Pete has a son now called Nathaniel, who's got pictures on Facebook with himself and Richard Branson. Mr. Ejegbo became a knight, Sir Keith Ejegbo, and worked to help other head teachers all around South London. So that told me two things. A, that people like me, young black boys, responded to black men. B, that those two guys were very special, and I'm forever grateful for them, to them, for what they did. Moving on, as I say, history and English were the only two exams I passed. From that, I went on to try acting. I was Scrooge in A Christmas Carol at my school, a role that I played again when I joined the posse, and we did something called Pinchy Kobe and the Seven Duppies. Apparently, old, miserable, and mean is something I'm going to grow into. So those are the parts that have followed me around, yeah. So after that, I joined the Young Activists at the Royal Court, and I did a lot of acting. In 1987, I got my big TV break. I was staff nurse Cyril James in 37 episodes of a series that's still on now called Casualty. I was in that. That was my first real taste of racism. You don't really see racism, not in Hackney. There's too much black boys in Hackney for that to happen. But in there, I had to kiss and fall in love with a white girl, a nurse, and I saw the letters that came in after I did it. And it's one thing to know about something, but when you see the letters and you read the letters, it's something else. I always say it, to see it and to know it is something different, which is what Dad used to say. And there's a lot of his sayings that have only just started to make sense to me. So I did that and I worked on Casualty. After Casualty ended, it got tough. So I was still a face that people knew, but I didn't have any money and I didn't have any qualifications. The reoccurring argument, and you'll find I jump about a bit, but you'll have to try and stay with me. It's because I'm a Gemini. The reoccurring argument I have with my wife right now is that I think our children should be going to private school. She does not. She got her degree in maths from Skinner School in Hackney, and she believes that our children too. I say I don't hope my child gets a degree. Yeah, I don't hope. It's not a hope for me. I expect both of my children to have degrees. And the reason that I expect them to have degrees is because I do a show day in, day out, and I've done it for the last 12 years, where black kids have nobody who expects anything of them, nothing positive. Therefore, I expect it. That is the reoccurring argument that I have in my house. I'm sure you'll ask me questions about that. And maybe you should while I'm still married. So, going back to leaving Casualty. So I left Casualty, 88. And then I didn't have any money. I didn't have any children. I didn't have any problem, but I didn't have any money. So I went to the job centre, and a woman at the job centre asked me for my autograph, and that hurt, because that ain't right. And then other people were staring at me, and that hurt, because that ain't right. And then they gave me a job, and I'm thankful to the guy who did it. That it was a cleaning job, and I was cleaning a cubicle while somebody was using the next one, and it wasn't. No, I mean, I don't believe there should be cubicles anywhere, because I don't want to hear that, sir. And that's what I was doing. And from that day, I put down the broom, and I decided that I would never do it again. And therefore, I've tried to do everything else. So I act, I compare, I do all sorts of things, play music, but I'm not going to go on the dole. And I've never been on it since that year, because it just wasn't me. I didn't feel right. And when I talk to young people now, I say, you get more satisfaction from going and doing a day's work than you do from sitting down there smoking weed and playing PlayStation. I promise you. It's tough, but you've got to put yourself in a position where perhaps you can get it. So it's really interesting, because I think they phoned me up 2 days after. My life has been like this. 2 days after I put down that piece of cloth from the toilet, and I was asked to do a show called The Clothes Show. And The Clothes Show, they wanted people who'd been on telly, and they paid me more money to go and just sit there. Don't say anything, just sit there, than I was getting for 2 months of cleaning the toilet. And I thought, well, how does this work? I didn't understand it. But understanding comes with age and time, you know, because time is longer than rope. After that, we get into the 90s. 90s were really, really tough. But then I did, again, that show that I told you, Pinchy Kobe and the Seven Duppies, with a group called The Posse. A guy had died, a guy called Calvin Simpson had died, doing couriering as an actor. And we decided that we would get together and do something. So we got a play, it was at Stratford. We had a television show. We did a show at the Tricycle. Pinchy Kobe and the Seven Duppies. A guy called Bill came to see it. At that time, Robbie G was the guy I act with a lot. He was in Desmond's. He was in the Real Mccoy. They came to see it. They said, we like that old man. Will you come and do it on the Real Mccoy? And I went on the Real Mccoy to do something called the Rubber Dub. And the Rubber Dub, myself and Judith Jacob, I play a guy called Cuthbert, and I liked Irish Moss. After a while, there were so many scenes that Leo wouldn't do, they asked me to join the main body of the cast. And that's when I did it. And that's why I annoyed them, because I told them the Real Mccoy only got good after series 3 when I joined. Interestingly enough, just as another aside, and you just have to forgive me for these asides, series 3 was when another guy joined. His name was Felix Dexter. Today I looked at my Facebook thing, which I do far too much, and you know they've got a new thing on there, which is on this date. And on this day, the 11th of October, year 2010, I was interviewing Felix Dexter for a show we were doing at the Camden Centre. And round about this day, or a little bit before, 3 years ago, I got a call, I got a message from John, and me and Angela Ma made a trip. And I've never been to a hospice before, but I went to the hospice to see him. That was a very chastening experience, because there's a contemporary, fantastically talented man with a lot of fans who never really got, in my opinion, what he was due. And he was dying there, you know, and I watched him and I went there to see him. And it's so funny, because humour for me has always been my escape. It's always been my way out. And the people in the hospice came in because they thought something was going wrong. But there was nothing going wrong, because although me and Angie were crying, we were laughing with Felix, because he was under the morphine, and he was talking some real rubbish. You see, he had his ex-girlfriend out there. He had a girlfriend that he was seeing, you know, outside the door, marshalling. I said, "How you got 3 ex-girlfriends here, Felix? How did that work?" So what happened? Because there must have been a little overlapping time. What happens when they start talking to each other? He said if they're in the room and they start talking to each other, yes, and I hear it, I go, and they all stop and they look at me, and then the conversation's not, and that's a dying man. Anyway, so the 90s, as I say, tough, went on to the Real Mccoy, did 3 series of the Real Mccoy. Real McCoy's a hurtful one, because I don't think a week goes by without somebody saying to me, when's the Real McCoy coming back? And I said, don't be ridiculous. He stopped in 1995. If you had a man and he leave your ass to go out there on the street 1995, you're still going to be waiting in 2015 for the man to come back? It's not coming back. It's finished. But, you know, that's a bit of an indictment, evening to you. It's a bit of an indictment on what's followed it, perhaps, that you're still looking for something that was done over 20 years ago. That's my opinion. The other sad thing, and being a little bit political about it, is that in the Real McCoy it was the black show, right? So being black, it was black, as in the political word black, meaning black, African, Caribbean and Asian. That's what it was. Goodness gracious me, Kumar's at number 42. Mia is now one of the richest Asian women in the country, and not one of us. Robbie's done 2 pilots. I've done a pilot. Curtis Walker has done a pilot. Felix did 3 pilots. Also, Luella did a pilot. The BBC haven't seen fit to take on any of those shows. So that's perhaps why they set up something, and the people that they put in it, and they didn't invest enough to go through with it with any one of us, so that you were working with people who had already done it, who already had a relationship with the audience, and kind of the audience trusted. And they didn't do it, and that's why there's kind of, in my opinion anyway, been a void. So moving forward, Real McCoy's finished now, and yeah, I'm again on my face. And I remember Lisa, my wife, was working in Birmingham in Sandwell, and things were so bad, I went up there to stay with her. She was working 4 days and off 3, and then I got a call. and it was from a guy called Ivor Etienne, who was at the time program controller of a station that's gone now that you might remember called Choice FM. So Choice FM was fantastic. It was like playing music. And Jeff Schumann had a chat show on a Saturday morning. It was fantastic. It was the only one. It still haven't got that kind of stuff now. And they asked me if I'd come and, I don't know, do some mucking about. And I'd gone on there. And every time I went on there, I say I'm a blagger, but I used to go onto the internet. And I'd just say, what is, I don't know, quirky facts or whatever. So every time they come to you, you would have something to say. He asked me to come and do what they call the graveyard slot, which is from 3 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock. Paul Mystery had turned it down, and nobody wanted it. And he said, well, you can do what you want between 3 and 5, because nobody listens. But from 5 to 7, we want you on a playlist. So I did what I wanted between 3 and 5. I did the only thing that I can do, which is to talk. And it got really weird, you know. We had teachers, doctors, we had all sorts of people who said to me they used to alarm their clock and they'd get up, have a chat, and then go back to bed at 5 o'clock. I was like, what are you talking about? We had people, I mean, you talk about, I mean, actually, you know, when somebody played me a tape of some of the things I said, and I was like, oh my goodness, did I really say that? You'd have really dark stuff, S&M startup kit. Why do you do conversations I would never have on the radio now because I've been BBC-fied. But people went for it because you never heard it before. It was late night, real conversation. And the BBC heard it. They invited me to come on to their station, and I thought, why would I leave here and go there? And they said, because we'll pay you more than the £10 an hour you're earning on Choice FM. So I said, okay. And I went there in this month of year 2002. October 2002, I went to BBC London, now BBC Radio London, and I've been there ever since. So I do the drive time show, and of the 42 or 3 local stations that the BBC have, radio stations, I'm the only guy doing a prime time show. All the others are doing something called, I don't know, the Flying Dutch Pot, rice and peas, or chicken and rice, whatever the show might be called. And I'd love to think it's because I'm fantastically talented and there's nobody like me, but it's not. It's because it's not a meritocracy out there. It's not a meritocracy. So somebody has to go, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we gave this guy a chance? And unless you get that, you don't, which is why we need people of colour in all aspects of business. Because when somebody comes in, I've got a woman I work with at the BBC that I've championed. Because the BBC, like any organisation, any big organisation is the same. Be it the building we're in now, the NHS, the police force, any big organisation, you're not going to thrive unless you've got a champion. Take it from me. Unless you've got somebody in there who goes, this person's all right. This person can do that. Look, I've seen this. Why don't we have a look at this person? It's going to be difficult. It's really going to be difficult. I promise you. That's what I've learned in my life. So at the Beeb, I've tried to just make sure I know where the bullets are coming from before they come. And it's tough, you know, it is really tough. Because on Choice FM, I can say, look, Bray, I don't know about you, but I'm deep on the road and, you know, everything is nice. I can't speak like that on the BBC. It's not A, because they wouldn't understand me, but B, because it would say something different. So I had to go on there, having earned my whole living. I've been self-employed all my life. And some of you in here are self-employed, and some of you in here, because you're of that mind and you wouldn't be in here otherwise, are going to be at some stage. It is the most scary thing you can do, but I don't know anything different. So it isn't scary for me, because I've never had a job. And going to the BBC, you get a contract for 1 year. So I've had now 13 of them, and I don't know, and I have to live. To buy a house, try and buy a car, try and make long-term plans. You survive on your wits. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because you can make a mistake, but you don't make it more than once. You don't, because it will result in you losing your job. You can make a mistake. Some of the things that I wake up in my bed crying about are the things that I've done. I've made some terrible mistakes on air with tens of thousands of people listening. But I've only made them once. I think one of the worst ones I made is when I said, oh, for goodness sake. This is before I had children. Oh, for goodness sake. There's no such thing as Father Christmas, for good. Why don't you stop lying to your children? Da, 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 da. And then a guy phoned up, so really interesting, a guy phoned up and said, look, can you just explain to this 4-year-old who's crying what you're saying? You just come on, tell me. Yeah? Because I'm trying to explain why this loud-mouthed idiot on the radio shouldn't be listened to, but maybe you can do it better. And it makes you understand that when you're speaking to people. I've talked about people and then they've phoned up. I've talked about politicians, they've phoned up. So people listen. So you have to be careful of what you say, because words are very, very powerful and very, very important. Also, a lesson I've learned on the BBC in the 12 years or so, actually what I realised is nothing had happened to me before I went to the BBC. So I'd get upset about all sorts of things that didn't matter. I'll give you a list. So, on the BBC, the first thing that happened to me was that my dad died. And I got that message, so my wife came and told me that as I'd just come off the radio. And that's, it's a difficult, I know many of you have probably gone through it, that's a difficult thing. Because you think you're over it and then it comes into your head and then and at that point I decided that I wanted children. Then my wife said to, well, my now wife said to me, if you want children with me, you're going to have to marry me. I'm not having children for you. So I said, because I'm a romantic kind of guy, me, if you want me to marry you, ask me then. I know, it's horrible, I know, I can't, but I tell people, hopefully it'll make me feel better. Anyway, she did, and in November of 2005, the 10th anniversary of which is next month, we got married in Goa. So, really nice, but still nothing had happened to me. In February of 2007, I was planning to do one of the things on my bucket list, which was to run the London Marathon, and I was losing weight, but I had a lump at the top of my thigh. I thought it was a hernia, and being the guy that I am, and guys know this, doctor is a place for women and small children. I'm a warrior. Warriors don't go away in doctor's surgery, but my wife made me, and it turned out to be Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I had cancer, and had it gone on much longer, I would have been in a different kind of problem. Now let me tell you something about cancer. Cancer is not a problem. Cancer doesn't do anything to anyone. It's the treatment they give you for the cancer that messes you up. So there was 6 months of chemo, and there's nothing like chemo. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Your capacity to sleep is just amazing. You just sleep. It takes all your energy. In fact, it's like little doses of poison, so your body's working to a maximum to fix that poison. That was hard. But still, in your tough times, in my tough times, are the funniest moments, because, as I say to people, before I started the treatment, they said, well, we don't know if you'll have treatment after you'll be able to have children after the chemo, so we suggest you go to Bart's and deposit some, in a tube. So what are you talking about? So yeah, we need 17. You might have to make 2 visits. Being a man from Hackney, I'm saying don't be ridiculous. I'm going to do that in 1. Needless to say, I went back to the place 7 times. And yeah, that was an interesting experience. But yeah, cancer saved me. Cancer saved my life, really. I tell people. But cancer wasn't easy. It was 18 months after I had the cancer that I could wear anything but black. Because when you've got it, and this is something that I've talked to people, because now I buddy people through it and the like, is that when you're going through it, all your energy is fighting it, right? So you can't do anything else but fight it. You can't do anything. When they say to you it's gone, all you then do is sit and wait for it to come back. That's what you do. And it takes 5 years before you go back down to having a normal rate. I'm telling, I can see by the look on some of your faces, I'm telling you already things that you know. Because 1 in 3 of us will know it. We've got friends, family, sadly children and parents who may well have gone through it. So I know I'm telling you what you know. The reason I'm telling you here today is because obviously, like somebody who goes to prison and says, if you let me out now, I'll never commit another crime. I was like making deals with God, if you allow me to live, I promise I'll do something. I try and do something differently. I try, I try. So I got 28th of September, year 2007. They said you got the all clear, and then I waited for it to come back. I dressed in black. Work were fantastic, by the way. Work were fantastic. They paid me when I wasn't there, and they gave me somebody to sit with me when I didn't have the confidence. Because I'm on the radio doing a job that you need confidence to do, and I haven't got the confidence to wear anything but black. So it was a very interesting time for me. And this, by the way, I'm sure most of you know, is a World Mental Health Weekend, let's call it. It was yesterday. And I didn't know, I didn't know what mental health challenges were like. But I think now, looking back at it, I was really going through a crisis, I had to phone up and say what, how, who, why. I had to have talking therapy. And it's only now that I look back at it, I didn't see the point in getting up in the morning. I didn't see the point in showering. I didn't see it. It got me. I don't know, something happened, and it went. So I had to keep my part of the bargain, And as I say, cancer saved my life, really. Because maybe I wouldn't say I'm a nice person, but I'm a nicer person than I was before that. So first thing we had to do, we had to run that marathon. So as I say, it took a long time. 2012, I ran the London Marathon. That felt good. I read a book in 2010 on my show. A guy came in and he said, read my book. And I said, why? He said, read my book. And the book was, if you do good things for people, it will make you feel better about yourself. So I read the book, and it's absolutely true. Think about this. If you see somebody on the street and you help an old lady across the road, you go and buy a paper or a loaf of bread for your neighbour, you go and pick your auntie up and you take her to church, you take your mum to have a cataracts operation at the hospital. Tell me, when you do it, you don't feel better about yourself. You do. You do. Doing good things for other people makes you feel better about yourself. If that's what we're talking about, then come on, let's do it. Let's go. Let's go. It's simple as that. So yeah, I ran the London Marathon. I say we because there's usually about 8 people trying to go, come on, usually my wife at the head of them. Ran the London Marathon. That was fantastic. Because even there was a woman, and this is a thing about racism or perceived racism, that sometimes you're aware of things and it goes up your own bottom because you start becoming too aware of it. So there was a woman, and it was late now. Because my knee had gone. And there was a woman, and I said to the woman, and I had a big pink beard. I'd grown my beard and I'd coloured it pink. And I said, come on, you can do it. And the way the woman looked at me, I thought she didn't want me anywhere near her. But I didn't leave her. I said, I'm not leaving you. It was about 1.5 miles to go. Let's do it together. So we got to Birdcage Walk, which the year before somebody died. Said, come on, come on. And I've got this woman, and when you run the marathon, there's a little step, not even that high, a little step like this. And you're so tired that when you step on that step, you feel like you're climbing a mountain, which is something we'll come on to in a minute. So I did that, and on Monday, I went to work. And I got a message on Twitter. To the man with the pink beard, I was so devastated, I was about to collapse, and I just want to say thank you. So she'd gone into Google and gone, idiot with pink beard. Or whatever you put in there. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, so jumped out of a plane, which, if you haven't done, is the single most exhilarating thing you will ever do in your life. And you don't, when you got tandem, by the way, I didn't do it on my own. When you do it, they don't give you a chance to say no, because you're touching somebody and they lift you up. And say, whoa, and it's like that. And you say, oh, my goodness, it's a whole different world from up there. And then maybe the best thing, only 3 months ago, the third thing on my bucket list, and I managed to do that with my manager Sarah, Dave, and my wife Lisa. We did that thing that lots of people in this room have talked about, thought about, and never done. We climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Don't bother. If you're thinking about it, as my mum would say, don't bother. Don't bother. It's hard. It's cold. It's hard. It's horrible. Forget about hygiene. You can take 7 knickers. You're only wearing 1. Forget it. You've got 5, 6, 7 layers on. You're sleeping in them layers there. All most you could do is rinse out your mouth a little bit. It's horrible. It's minus whatever. You got gloves over gloves. Trust, it's just the worst thing. It costs the absolute fortune. And the single most gratifying thing I've ever done. Isn't that interesting? If Lisa was here now, she would say, haven't you missed out the fact that you had 2 children? But we'll talk about, they caused me nothing but pain, so we'll leave them. So that was great. That was great because you had to work as a team to do that. And there were 22 of us. We were a really slow team, and 17 of us managed to make it to the top. And we went around and we managed to raise £40,000, yeah, for charity. And just this week, Thursday, as one of the charities said thank you to us by inviting us to be guests at 10 Downing Street. And actually they made a little time for us, and we went into somewhere called the White Room to meet the Prime Minister. Now everybody in that room, in the private room and in the room with everybody else, all they wanted to ask him about is a £25 million for Jamaican prisons. Funny, but my man was moving quick. He wasn't staying anywhere too long. He'd keep it moving, keep it moving. So that was interesting, you know, being there. And I suppose, you know, it's nice to feel as though something you're doing for somebody else is acknowledged. But honestly, if you're in the world of business, so many, you know, I did a study recently and said over 70% of black businesses were designed for black people. And by that they mean, like, you know, you're going into the food shop, the hairdresser, the barber, and the whatever. But these times have changed, you know. People can do anything. I seen my first truly multicultural film yesterday. My son has seen it before and he asked me to watch it with him, and I truly enjoyed it. It was Annie. You guys have seen it, right? And Annie's a truly multicultural film because they're there on merit. Because the girl is a black girl and he's a black guy, but it isn't a black film. It isn't a black film, and you get these things. My son broke my heart last week. He told me he wanted to be Tarzan, and I just wanted to say, I'm not your dad anymore. That's what I wanted to see. A film is really important because it's what you see. And you know, this whole thing about, you have to be open though. It's racism or colour or multiculturalism isn't as simple as we would like it to be. You know, it's hard. Rio Ferdinand's wife died the other day, and when they won the Premier League, John Terry said, I would just like to hand my deepest sympathy to Rio Ferdinand. And I took it on the radio, and we were like, ah. And they were like, what is the problem, Eddie? What is the problem? And I realised, you know, it gets difficult when good people do bad things and bad people do good things. Because actually, he might have been genuine, and I think he probably was. Because that's the moment where you're drinking champagne, you're jumping up and down. And for you to think about somebody who's going through a tough time, you have to really feel it. So it isn't as easy as we would all think it is. I can see the way that Livingston is standing now in my peripheral vision, that my time must be coming to... You learn that. From telly, you learn it. See where he's standing right there? Yeah, it's right there. So maybe 5 minutes. If there's anything I've missed out, is anything that anybody would like to ask me, either about, I don't know, radio, television, sickness, or whatever, surviving, because it is tough to survive, because I'd earned my whole living from black people up until the point where I joined BBC London. And actually, when you look at it, we've got bills, children, troubles, fears, anxiety. We're human beings. And this isn't the world that I grew up in. This is like, when I hear the bass coming from a car now, it isn't necessarily a black guy. So, you know, open your mind, broaden your horizon. And I always say when I go in to speak to young people, and I know I'm probably the youngest apart from that young girl in the room here, from looking at her, I'm probably the youngest in the room, yes. You can be who you want to be. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. The only limit to what you can achieve are the limits of your own imagination. Go out there and be the best you can be. That's it. Simple. 5 minutes, if Livingston will allow me. Anybody?
You have 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions or something to say to Eddie, please just raise your hand. I'll come to you with a microphone. Anyone?
Oh, that's good. Nobody.
Oh, no, not that quick. Patience. Here we go. Please just say your name and address, Eddie.
My name's Shirley. I wanted to ask Mr. Eddie Nestor, what is the thing I've got a job and I want to have my own business eventually. Like, what is the thing that motivates you? Because I find it hard to motivate myself on a daily basis to do what I need to do to get to that stage. I'm just like, what is it that motivates you?
Yeah, why do you want to have a business?
Because I'm fed up of working for somebody else and having to kind of like be under them and be subjected to.
So tell me how having autonomy and the power of knowing when you want to do something, how you want to do it. Tell me how that's not motivation.
It's motivation, but sometimes when I'm doing the things to get to that point, I find myself doing it slowly sometimes and not like...
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted you to say. See, what happens is that there's a super objective, right? The super objective is to run your own business, to have money, to whatever it might be. That's your super objective. Then you've got to work backwards. There's this thing called a Burzan brainstorm thing where you just literally throw all your ideas, whatever they might be, however silly, you throw them all onto a blank piece of paper. So you've got your super objective. Then you have to work out your actions to achieve your super objective. So you're not going to get there today. You're not going to have your own business tomorrow. But let's just say I need to now build up my network of contacts. I need to turn up at more places like this. I need to, Mum, I told you about these sayings, yeah, and they've come back as I've got older to make sense to me. My mum's favourite saying was, tell me who you frequent and I'll tell you who you are. And you know what that means? It means that if you want to be what you say you want to be, or you're going to be like everybody else and talk stuff and don't do it, if you really want to do it, then you're going to surround yourself with people who either want to do it or who are doing it. That way, all your energy is focused towards something positive. If you want to focus on what was on X Factor or what somebody's wearing or who buy what, that's all kind of, transient. It's not helping you to do and to be what you want to be. So you're going to have to get organized. You're going to have to go to events like this. You're going to have to speak to people. You're going to have to find organizations or people, like Livingston was just mentioning there, that help people with start-up businesses. One of the people at the Prime Minister's place was Tim Campbell. First winner of Apprentice, has gone on now, created something called the Bright Ideas Trust. He gives people money now. That's his job. He finds people who have great ideas and he gives them money. What a fantastic job. So I would say to you, if you bear what I've just said in mind, when you're ready to do it, you'll put everything in place to do it.
Thank you, Eddie. Just one more person here.
Hi, my name is Masama. Thanks for the talk. It was really inspirational. I was wondering why your preference for your children is private school.
Well, because I have two boys, and Marcy's here, whose child goes to the same school as my boy. I have two boys, and I do a drive time show, which is effectively a news show. So I have to talk, and I've done it. So last week, Saturday, you couldn't get up Chatsworth Road in Hackney because a kid got killed. The kid who died, so I then go into the Bush Telegraph and I find out what's happened. So the kid who got killed, who's 25 years old, right, a black boy, was the same kid. Now, your memory might not be as long as mine, but there was a boy called Robert Levy who died on the steps of Hackney Town Hall, right? 11 years of the anniversary of his death. 11 years and a week. The boy who was killed, Moses, was that anniversary. And Robert Levy was killed trying to stop somebody being stabbed. Guess who it was? Moses. That's the world we're living in, right? So when I go, and I've done it too many times, I could tell you, short of losing my own children, it's the single most painful thing I've done. It hurts me as much as the cancer does, or the chemo, because the cancer didn't really hurt. It hurts when you look into the eyes of a mother or father whose child has gone down through knife or gun crime. There's no kind of pain, because they're like, what could I have done? You could see it. How could this have happened to me? Why didn't I die? In fact, I am dead, or a part of me is dead. So, and the thing is, you could do the best that you want for your child, but if your child comes into contact with a child that hasn't had the same kind of love, care and attention, then what happens then? So don't create that false economy for yourself and say if you did it. So for me, personally, as a guy who did not avail himself of the fantastic educational system, who fell victim to this one teacher who said, if you set your sights more realistically, I never wanted that for my child. And I wanted to put, the thing, the Mayor of London is from Eton. The Chancellor of this country is from Eton. The Prime Minister of this country is from Eton. Yes? Tells me something about private schools. It tells me that they say to kids, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, you can do. Not you can't do, you can do. And this is how you do. Yeah? So if there's a generation that's getting there, I'd like that for my child too. And if that means that I don't wear shoes, I won't wear shoes. But I have to say, you know, it is, you know, you're bringing, we're lucky enough that, as I said, we're still together. And Lisa got her degree, so we went for the best school. We moved from Hackney and we went to Wanstead. And then we found the school, which is a faith school. And sometimes I feel like a hypocrite. Sometimes I do. But when you, like all the people who said it to me all those years ago, you don't know. Until you have had children, you don't know. Don't know. If you're in this room now, you don't know. But anybody who is a parent, they know. That you do anything for them. Past yourself. So that's why I think, as a girl, I think you can do it. See, if you ask your daughter to bring you this piece of paper over there, yes? She's going to go and get this piece of paper, and she's going to come back, and she's going to give it to you. Here. My sons, if I said to them, go and get me this piece of paper. It's different. Sorry, please stop. Boys and girls are different. And my son, see, my son is now just coming into contact with his cousins, yeah? My brother's children. And he come home and he say to me, why can't I have Nike? I'm like, who told you about Nike? I'm happy. Me, George, there's the fella that lives at Asda, Primark, we're all nice. All of a sudden now, oh, no. So I think boys are, sorry, long answers to your question. I think boys are different.
Okay, we are fast running out of time. I have time for one more. Please keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maureen Chewett.
Hello,
I
Maureen.
am a talking therapist and I work with people who have suffered from emotional distress. So I thank you for bringing up Mental Health Day, because Mental Health Day was yesterday. There was a Mental Health Day held for people who are suffering from mental health within churches. I went there and there was 4 black people out of 500 people. But there's black people suffering of mental health because of emotional distress that happen after operations go wrong. So just if we take that into account and just attend these places and help one another as we suffer from these things that are as a result of things that happened in our pasts or operations and such likes. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eddie, would you like to just say a few words on that before we conclude, please?
Well, to say what's in the public domain, I have a particular interest in mental health because I come from Hackney, and the site of the old Hackney Hospital now, or the Homerton Hospital, is a semi-secure unit. And what happens, particularly with young black guys, is they're diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic with potential for violence, because the way that we speak to each other, you know, it's so. You see, for the first 5 years at the BBC, I used to make people cry, and then I used to make them cry more by asking them why the hell they're crying, and then I realised just the way we speak. So you can see us talking with the hand movements and the whatever, and if you take that into mental health, it's not understood. Which is why you need people in all walks of life who perhaps understand culturally how people move. You see 2 Nigerians or 2 Jamaicans talking, and they're friends. If you don't have the volume up, or you see the way their hands are moving, the way you're looking at it as a policeman, and you say, I need backup. I need backup. So if you're taking that into mental health, then you knew that. So a lot of my work, you know, in Time for Change, I had a lady on who's a paranoid schizophrenic. That was a really interesting, because I'd never done that one before. And then we argue about whether or not if you had a mental health challenge, you'd tell people. And, you know, I still, even though I do a lot of work in it, I still think it's probably the last taboo. I think that if you tell people you're going to, you know, we're still not at the stage where people will be kind, loving and accepting. I think you'll be judged, in my opinion anyway. But just to leave you on this, yeah, in terms of perception. So I'm coming up today, and you got to read. And they used to say the way to hide stuff from a black man is to put it in a book. You got to read. You got to read, and you got to talk. You got to have a couple of people that you talk with, people who are doing well, people who are inspiration to you. Talk, because and be aware of what's going on. You know, when I was a kid, people used to turn off the news. I sit and watch the news because I want to know. And the news is really important. It's important what they show you, and sometimes it's actually more important what they don't show you. So yesterday being World Mental Health Day, there was also a march in America. We're up to 1 million people turned out. It wasn't covered at all. It wasn't covered at all. And so you have to be aware of that, because then you understand why it wasn't covered. They weren't killing anyone. They were talking about justice, about peace, about bigging yourself up, looking after your children, looking after your family, looking after your neighbour, be they young, old, black or white, having a more kind of community-minded, cohesive spirit. That's what he was talking about. So you have to wonder whether or not there's an agenda for you, an agenda for me. And only when you're aware of it can you do anything about it, yeah? But what you are, who you are is a plus, whatever it is. It's a plus. You're that for a reason. And for me, there's no point in being on the radio. There's no point in surviving cancer unless I'm going to try and do something with it. It doesn't make sense, yeah? So it's been my pleasure to be here with you today, and I hope you have a great time at whatever it is that you do. Thank you very much.
Don't go away, sir. Eddie, thank you for being the inspiration that you are. And before I allow you to leave the stage, there's a young lady that I'd like to bring on stage to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it for Ms. Carol Cato, the brains behind this event. Carol, a few words.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to quickly say thank you to Eddie for coming here today. All he said is really great. I love what he said about the family, about unity, about us as successful people. It's about uniting each other, and we all have to work together as one. And if we don't do that, if we keep fighting, if we keep killing each other, we're not going to succeed. And this is why I've put this platform on, is for you. I didn't actually have a business, and as the young lady said that she didn't have a business, and how I started this was by volunteering in other businesses. And I thought, well, what can I do that's a little bit different? And so this is where I've come up with this Buy Black weekend, and I think we need it, and I think you guys need it. And so please carry on supporting me as I will support you, because this is what my business is about, is support you. Okay? Anyway, I just want to say thank you again to Eddie and give him a round of applause.
Thanks very much, Eddie. Thanks very much, Carol. And we have two now.